Hi. So, you guys know me. Most of you will know me. I'm with Absent-Minded Crafts. I normally don't do videos like this. Mine are normally live videos, so there's a little bit more interaction. So you'll have to forgive me if I forget anything or if I stumble over my words. Hopefully you guys will be kind to me. So we're going to get started. So I put together these follow along boxes, and this is the video for you guys to follow along. This is going to go by step and do more of a tutorial than I normally do, because most of my videos are kind of like just showing you what I'm doing instead of like a step-by-step tutorial explaining step-by-step what to do to make a tumbler. So first of all, before you get started with anything else, you're going to want to put together your turner. The turners are pretty easy and fairly straightforward on how to put together. There are 6 screws. Mine is already put together. I used it a couple days ago, so it's a little messy, but I can show you mine. So this one is mine. It has 6 screws. There are 2 here and 4 here to put together your turner. There's also one here. The longer one goes here to put your wand on. I use tape here on mine just to give it a little bit so it doesn't squeak a little bit. And then I poked a hole all the way through my foam to make it easier for whenever I'm sliding it on and off of our cup. So I'm going to put that to the side for just a second, and I'm going to show you how to tape and prep your cup. So most of you guys will have gotten a 20 ounce, not a 22. Some of you will receive the 22s. It doesn't matter which style of cup it is. It's the same prep time for both. The Ozarks will have a label that you have to take off, but again, that's fairly straightforward and simple. I use a heat gun to take my labels off. It just makes it easier. It's a little bit faster. You can also, just take it off with a little bit of acetone. Excuse me. So I use electrical tape. A lot of people will use painter's tape. You can use whatever you choose to use. It's not really, it's just a preference. It's not you have to use something like that. You also don't have to tape off your cups. I choose to because we've had people that have had damaged bottoms, and it's a health risk for me, I think, to not tape off the tops. So you take your electrical tape. I like to have mine overlap the top of the cup just a little bit. So I'll show you. So just a tiny bit, it'll overlap. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be completely straight. I kind of take my cup and roll it as I hold the tape straight. That helps me keep it on a level surface and have it straight. And then when it matches back up, I overlap on the tape, usually about 2 inches. You also, again, don't have to overlap. I choose to. It is my preference. Scissors are on my list of things that you guys need, and then I didn't even put them over here. There they are. So once it's overlapped a little bit, I take this edge and kind of fold it under. So you have like a little pull tab. That's for whenever you're taking the tape off of your cup, it'll come in handy. So I kind of take that edge that I overlapped and kind of push it in. This protects the edge of your cup from epoxy or anything else, paint. I do the same thing for my bottoms. Overlap just a little bit. And then I make the cup do the work. I hold the tape straight and just kind of roll the cup to meet the tape. And then another little pull tab at the bottom. So whenever you're done, it will look something similar to this. Then you want to take a piece of sandpaper. Now you can use any grit, it does not matter. I got a variety pack on Amazon for like $10 and it had everything from 200 all the way up to like 1,000. So it's whatever I grab is what I use. Now I'm not going to do the whole cup because it's really, really hard on the ears and I know you guys don't want to hear that. But you want to kind of scratch the surface of your tumbler to prep it. So to show you, can you see that? Where it roughs up the surface. You want to rough up the surface before you paint it because it gives that paint something to stick to. So I already have a cup painted. That's what we're going to be working on or working with, but I wanted to show you kind of the process of how to get your cups prepped. My preference for spray paint, I prefer Montana Gold. It dries faster. I get a better coating with it. It is more expensive. They are something like $9 to $12 a can, depending on where you buy it from. But Montana Gold is my preference. If I can't get Montana Gold, I just use flat white primer. I know it's backwards for you guys, sorry, but it does not matter brand. It does not even really matter the color. You could do it any color you want. I spray mine flat white usually, just because that's what I prefer. Okay, so we're gonna put that to the side. Now, before you get started with anything, you're gonna want to prep your surface. So for me, this means I cover most things in my work area with contact paper. This is Duck brand peel and stick contact paper. You don't have to use this one. You can use any brand you want. You want to cover your surface with a big enough piece that your cup, turner, and all of the epoxy that you will be using will be on the prepared surface, not overlapping in any way. So for me, that means that this area gets covered in plastic. Now, my surface is already pretty messed up. This is more to show you what you should do so that your surface doesn't look like mine and so that you don't get it all over your house. Because most of you guys don't have dedicated she sheds for making tumblers. Okay, so I also usually prepare a piece that goes over my turner. So whenever you have your turner in front of you, you would put it here. Oops. You guys can't see what I'm doing. You would have it here over top of the bottom base of it. I do that just so that it doesn't get messy. I didn't do it the other day, and so now I've got epoxy stuck to my turner. These are made out of stainless steel, so hopefully you'll be able to get it off if you do mess up. And if not, c'est la vie. It's a turner. It's not supposed to be pretty. Okay, so let's get to unpacking the box and what comes in it. So I've already this one didn't get packed finished because I spilled a little bit of blue ink in it, but I'll show you what's in it anyways. So some of these are extras. They are not things that were advertised as coming in the tumbler boxes, which means that you may not get one. It just depends on who packed your box, kind of. So this one is a glitter shaker. You put glitter in it and shake it for ombres, for glitter ombres. I can show you one of those in another video. You will get 2 ounces of each side, A and B, for your epoxy. So 4 ounces total. You will receive 3 colors of glitter. This is all by Sunflower Sparkles. She was amazing and partnered with me for these. And then she threw in for each box also one of her chunky blings. So I'm going to put the glitter to the side because we're not going to use glitter with this cup. You will receive medicine cups. This is glow powder. This one's a mica powder. These are your mixing bowls. This is a silicone mold used for excess epoxy. I think these are ring molds or charm molds for making jewelry. This one is mica powder, or chameleon mica powder. You can see that's where I spilled the blue ink on it. This one is a purple, green, blue shift, I think, or a red, no. It is a red, yellow, green shift. You will receive 3 colors of alcohol inks. This one has green, blue, and silver in it. You'll receive a spatula. You'll receive a mixing spatula. This is one of those extras. So these make really cool pens that you put glitter in. I'll show you on that with another tutorial. This is a mixing hand. I bought these to test out, so I sent them to you guys as my testers. If you like them, let me know. Let's see. You should receive mixing popsicle sticks, and then your spoons for your micas. So I'm going to put some of this back because I'm not going to be using it on this one. We'll keep one of those out. And we'll keep one of these out, oh, 2 of these out. Let's put that back, put that back. So my suggestion is, if you're going to be doing this, put back whatever you're not going to use back in your box and put it to the side so that it doesn't get in your way and you're not accidentally knocking it over into your workspace. So now we get to the mixing part. You're going to want 7.5 to 10 milliliters of epoxy from each side. So side A, 7.5 to 10. And there's little measurings on the side. Need just a little bit more. And I'll show you, they're both full, and I'll show you how much you have left after doing 1 cup. This is why I say that you have enough to do several tumblers with the materials that we sent you. Okay, so see, now that they are used, that's about how much you should have used. Just a little bit. And it's because we're only doing 1, we're not doing multiple tumblers. You guys will see me fill them when I do mine, and that's because I do a couple of tumblers at once. So some things that you will not receive from us, but that you can pick up pretty easily at the dollar store. A plastic cup. You can get these from the dollar store. I use them for alcohol, so that's what it's actually full of right now is alcohol. And that is so that whenever you're done with your spatulas and your spoons, you stick them in the alcohol, you kind of swirl them around to wash them off. And I just let mine sit in the alcohol. You don't have to. You can also clean them off after you're done and put them away. It just makes it a little bit easier. if they are clean. And the alcohol will take all of the epoxy off of them. Okay, so I'm gonna move this down a little bit so that you can actually see my workstation a little bit better. Okay. So this is the resin. This is side B, I believe. I don't have the label in front of me. Resin is a little thicker than the hardener. You want to scrape the inside of these medicine cups as well as you can. Make sure that your measurements are as equal as possible. This is the hardener. Resin plus hardener equals epoxy. I prefer the flat spatulas for mixing. You can use whatever you want. A lot of the girls at the retreat used the popsicle sticks. You can. That's why we sent you multiples, just so that if you want to choose something different and want to try something different, you can. When you start making these a little bit more often, you'll kind of get a knack for what works for you and what doesn't. So we are expecting to have a little bit of epoxy left over after we're done with this, because you'll want to fill up your mold. And if you don't have any epoxy left over, that's okay too. You don't have to fill up your mold. I also use excess epoxy to add accents like mica or glitter or glow powder. So you want to mix it for 2 to 3 minutes. When you're done mixing it, it will, or it should, be pretty clear so that there's no, you'll see it whenever you start mixing it, so there's no swirls. You'll have bubbles, but that's okay. Bubbles are okay as long as there's no, as long as it's evenly mixed. So let's see. You guys can see that I've got bubbles, but there's no cloudy swirls in it. So I'm done with this one. So we're gonna switch and we're gonna use this. Now I wipe it off with just a paper towel off to the side. You don't have to use it that way. We're gonna put that to the side for just a couple minutes. So now we're gonna open up our alcohol inks. Now, whenever I packed all of your alcohol inks, I tried to pack colors that would go well together and that are going to match or mix well with the glitter that we sent you. So remember I said I had that cup that was already painted and already taped. This is that cup that's already taped, already painted. It is a 20 ounce. It's the same size that you guys got. I'm gonna move our turner over into the video. So I choose to take my foam off and put it in the cup first, and then I put the foam back on the cup. You do not have to do it that way. You can leave it on the turner and then put the cup on the turner that way. I found that it was easier to do it this way. Oh, thank you. You'll get used to adjusting your cup to find where you want it to be and make sure that it's level. All right. Then you turn it on, and I can't tell if you guys can tell that it's spinning, but just like that. All right. So then you take your epoxy that you mixed up. You're still gonna have a little bit of bubbles. If you have let it sit for more than 10 minutes, you probably won't have bubbles, but I have a little bit of bubbles still. Okay, so then you take your epoxy and just a little bit at a time, just kind of spread it on. This doesn't have to be even, it doesn't have to be pretty. You just kind of want to get it on, and then we can use a torch or a heat gun later to make it more level. It'll also level out as it spins. This is just to kind of get your base layer on here. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take a little bit extra after I've put it on and just kind of drizzle a little bit of extra on. It's because I have a tendency of putting a little less than what I probably need to on it. So this way it makes it to where I've got a little bit more on that tumbler, a little thicker layer. Okay. Oh, hold on one second. I apparently used the torch this morning when I was doing tumblers. You can get these torches from Amazon. I got mine from Amazon. It just says Torch 400, not a special brand. So this is where you want to kind of be careful. As newbies, probably better to get a heat gun rather than a torch, because torches get a little hotter faster. I just kind of go back and forth fairly quickly over the tumbler. This is just to get out bubbles and kind of even out the tumbler coat really quick. You don't want to leave it in one spot for very long. Just like that. Okay. So remember, I said that my colors were blue, green, and silver. Now, with the silver, it's an additive, which means that you have to shake it up really well. And then I always mix mine with epoxy, just because I find that it works better that way. Then it doesn't take over your tumbler. You can put it where you want it to go. It's a little easier. So you want to shake it really well, because whatever they make the silver with kind of sinks. White is the same way. I also do it with black unless I'm making a galaxy tumbler. So you'll just want a couple of drops. It's not a whole lot, it's just a couple of drops in the bottom. Probably 4 or 5 drops. And then I added a little bit of epoxy to make it a little bit bigger. I use a toothpick to mix mine. You can use whatever you have on hand. You can also use the popsicle sticks that I sent you. It doesn't matter what. Okay, once you've mixed it with your epoxy, it's not all that way up. It's only a little bit, but then I put it aside for a little bit later. These are sapphire blue. It's one of my favorite colors. And then this one is forest green. Now blue and green can mix and they come up with a pretty cool color. Some colors can't be mixed, like I wouldn't necessarily mix green and purple or yellow and purple. Those give you kind of a weird color, but this one gives you a pretty good mix usually. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more blue. So at this stage in your cup, they're not really all that attractive, right? You may be thinking you did something wrong or it doesn't look right. Let it spin. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna surprise you and you're gonna be in love with it. Okay. So, epoxy and alcohol inks don't really like each other very much sometimes, and so sometimes you'll get these bare spots. I think you guys can see them in the video where there's no epoxy or the alcohol ink goes straight down to the tumbler. That's whenever I use a little bit of that clear epoxy that you still have left and just kind of drizzle it on those bare spots. This adds a little bit more epoxy to it in this stage instead of waiting until the end or having to do a clear coat. It doesn't usually take very much. Okay, so now that's added. Now's where you add a little bit of heat. You can use a heat gun, you can use a torch. I prefer the torch. My husband prefers the heat gun. The heat gun gives you a little bit more coverage, and it also makes this doesn't get quite as hot, so you don't have to worry about torching your epoxy. The main thing to remember whenever you're doing this is that you want even coverage, but not for you to leave your torch in one spot for too long. So for me, usually that means that I'll turn it on and I just kind of go back and forth. You'll start to see it move as the epoxy starts to heat up. Your colors will start to flow. And as it starts to flow, those colors will start blending. Now remember that box that I gave you? It had a mica color in it. I'm gonna grab out my mica color. And that, the Ghost Chameleon powder. So I use these. You don't have to. You can also use any small bowl that you have. Of course, they went all the way to the bottom. So you're going to be using just the tiny tip of your spoon in your epoxy. Not very much at all. I'm going to use the same spoon for my chameleon. Now, chameleon powder I use even less of. It's very, very, very little of. I get these little round spools. I think they're called dowels at Michael's. And you're not going to use very much of it at all. So then you kind of mix your epoxy and your mica powder. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing again. Sorry. Just mixing. Micas kind of give a shimmery color to them. Same thing with your Ghost Chameleon powder. Another name for them is interference powders. Now, I use the tip of the spoon that I mixed it in and just kind of like run small lines through my epoxy. It's going to give it your cup a little bit of a different look. All right. That silver that we mixed up a little bit earlier, I'm gonna just do just a tiny drop of it. You don't want to use too much because silver has a tendency of taking over your cup. And then same thing with the mica powders. Unless you're doing your whole cup in micas, it should just be used as an accent. And I like to use it to kind of give your cup a little bit of a depth of color. All right. So then we kind of heat it up a little bit. And as it heats and flows, it's going to mix with the colors that you already have on there. And not look so clumpy. Just one little spot here. There we go. You can also kind of use your little stick and just kind of swirl. Gives your cup some texture. And since epoxy is self-leveling, as long as it's still warm, it won't interfere with the drying process. All right. And add just a little bit more heat. To level out kind of those spots that I moved the epoxy around in. There we go. And then we let it spin. So normally I let my cup spin for about 45 minutes until I take off the tape. I'm going to take it off now just so that you guys can see kind of what the cup will kind of look like finished. It will change a little bit as it spins, but essentially what you have now is what your cup is going to look like at the end. So I always kind of let it spin as it's going, or as I'm taking the tape off, so that the cup does the work and not me. It also prevents your cup from flying off of your turner. I'm sure you guys can remember some of my oopsies. All right. Now you let it spin for about 6 to 8 hours until it is dry and not tacky to the touch. You want to make sure that whenever you're checking, you check kind of down towards the bottom so that if you do leave a fingerprint, it's not as noticeable. But anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that I answered all the questions that we could during the video. If for some reason you have a question that I didn't answer, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I will personally be trying to reply to as many comments as I can. If you don't get a reply in the comments, go ahead and send me a message on our Facebook page. It is Absent Minded Crafts, or in our Absent Minded Crafts videos group. That's where normally my live videos go. So bye guys.